This is not about you versus me. This is not about red versus blue. This is not about NIMBY versus YIMBY. This is about a community that's going to try to get together that needs to solve a very complex problem. And I said, I tried for a long time to communicate and get questions and answers, and I got nowhere. And they said, well, we reached out to the community. Well, I went to a couple of their presentations. I could barely understand them. Okay.
Yeah.
They were not. And then the last thing, the graphics, they owed us graphics. The graphics came out the day before the public hearing. Remember that? Those graphics?
Yeah.
The day before. So
Gregg Ostrow, thanks for making time to chat with me today about the Upzone. I appreciate it.
yeah, I appreciate the opportunity.
So for starters, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? So you and I chatted, but what's your background? What do you do?
Okay, so I am a licensed architect. I attended Cal Poly San Luis Obispo in the early 80s, graduated in 1984. Got licensed in California in 1987, and then I moved to Idaho in 1996. I got my Idaho license. Spent 3 or 4 years, more like 2 years just in the private sector, and then I spent 20 years at St. Luke's, 10 years as an employed facility architect, and another 10 years as a consultant. And in the last three or 4 years, I've just been kind of put a shingle out and drawing whatever people need, because I feel there's a need for, small time architecture for people.
Mm-hmm.
I also joined the board of the East End Neighborhood Association 4 years ago, and I just got off it just last couple months ago. And that is how I got involved in the rewrite. I was the chairman of the development committee, and the rewrite came out, and I felt it was, my duty to go through it. I think I got a little too far into it. I spent a lot of time on it, but I want to say that because it's so big, it's so complex, I focused on the R1C zone because I felt it was the most effective. And I live in that zone too, so.
Yeah, that makes so your introduction to the Upzone was through the East End Neighborhood Association. Is that fair?
Well, I probably would not have taken it on if I was not the chairman of the development committee for the East End Neighborhood Association.
So in other words, maybe you would have kind of it would have passed you by and it wouldn't have caught on your radar. Is that what you're kind of saying?
Probably would have passed me by and not caught on my radar like most of the Boiseans.
Yeah, that's what we find too, is, a lot of people just don't know about it. Let me ask you this question. Being an architect, what do you think people's ability who aren't architects, who aren't urban planners, the layperson, what are you finding in your own experience? Are they able to understand what's happening here in a meaningful way? Or what can you speak about that a little bit about how much you have to know in order to understand this code?
Well, I don't think majority of people can understand it. And I put some webinars together where I try to explain it as good as I could. And each progressive, I made 4 or 5 presentations of this on this. And each time I had to do my best to try to simplify it. And I still, until people see it happening, I don't think they're going to have a understanding of it.
Yeah. And that's what I find in my background too, being, planners and designers and architects think in a different way and they can translate things. Whereas the layperson, like they want to see a picture, they've got to see a models, which is great. But I agree with that too. And that's what, I found looking at other parts of the country, like specifically Austin, people really didn't see what it was going to do until it actually went into effect and rolled a few years. And then they were like, oh boy, wow, this is pretty different.
Well, and once again, we're going to be in the same kind of boat because this is not something that's going to happen overnight. Okay. It's not something that's once again, everything that we're talking about now is speculative. It's a guess. We're guessing that we changed item A to item A.1 because we think that's going to give us what we want. Okay. There's so many other variables involved. Zoning can only do so much. Okay, then you've got finances, you've got economics, you've got interest rates, you've got construction costs. There's all of these variables in there. It's at this point I want to tell you that I'm not part of any pro or anti group for the rezone. I see the need for the rezone for an affordability piece to it. But I'm one of those guys that does not feel that density by itself creates affordability. Okay. Proper density could create affordability. One of the biggest things that came out, what I thought was interesting is when Tim Keene went on TV and talked about community developers. And when at the end of it, I thought, oh, I don't even know what a community developer is. Okay.
Yeah.
But consequently, now as I've researched it, it's typically a nonprofit group that is there to provide affordable housing. LEAP is a perfect example of that. Okay. They're funded by private money and they're doing a fantastic job, but they're providing 0.5% of what our affordable needs are. So, that takes me to the thought that if you get the private developer or just a developer, general developer, could be a homeowner. If you allow them the opportunity to provide large market rate units, they're going to do that. Okay. Because they're typically profit driven. And the biggest thing that I saw with this rewrite was it started out pretty good. I mean, it had some clauses in there that would say, you know what, we're going to have to limit what we're going to let people build, because if we don't and it gets out of hand, it's gone. And then another interesting twist was at the end, it was essentially affordability. Okay, the entire message from the city and other groups was we need to provide affordable homes so that our kids can live here, or this and that. But I thought at the end of the day, they went a 180 from that, and I hope can explain that to you.
That's what I saw too. We saw that, and I really look forward to you going through. You said sounds like you've got a presentation and a sequence you'd like to go through. So why don't you go ahead and show us what you've got there, Gregg?
Okay. Well, the beginning of it is more verbal, not graphic, but I was extremely surprised to hear after the public hearing at the City Council to see the planning, Tim Keene and the planning group remove affordability incentives in the code. I mean, they were very unique. Okay. They may have been what's the word? They may have prevented certain development. Okay, so you could have seen, well, hey, if we do this, we'll never get this, this, and this. Okay, so what they did is in the last for the R1C zone, everything I'm talking about with you today is the R1C zone because I could only take a small piece of this pie. I couldn't do 600 plus.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Yeah, yeah. So if you were in an R1C zone today, you can do a single family home, a duplex, and a single family home with an ADU, and you can do a duplex with an ADU. So today you can put 3 units on your R1C lot. So this idea of that we have to really modify this code, that's false. Okay, I can do 3 units on my property today. So what they did with the zoning code is they said, well, now we're going to allow you to do a triplex and a fourplex. And a triplex is different than a duplex with an ADU, okay? Because the ADU is a whole different ballgame. And they said, but in order for you to do that, you need to meet an affordability and a sustainability requirement. And the affordability requirement was 1 of 3 need to be income restricted to 80% of AMI, okay? And the 2 of the 4 fourplexes in a fourplex had to be linked to the 80% AMI. Now, go online and you'll see that 80% of AMI is not cheap rent.
It's still high. It's still fairly high, is what you're
Still
saying.
fairly high, and then you had to meet a sustainability requirement, and the sustainability requirement was very easy. Basically, in a nutshell, it said no gas appliances, no gas dryer, no gas cooktop, and low water flow irrigation. Okay, so essentially no grass. We need to save water. And then at the 13th hour, they said it's sustainable or affordable, effectively removing the affordability requirement. So now I can do a fourplex on my property with as long as I don't use natural gas, and I use all electric utilities and all the electric appliances, and I put a low drip system, low water irrigation. So it's gone. Okay.
So they don't have to mess with the 80%. They don't have to do anything with AMI. They don't even have to address affordability.
No, not at all. Okay. Now, similar with the ADUs, accessory dwelling units. I think most people know what those are. It was up to 700 square feet, 2-bedroom. It's now up to 900 square feet, 2-bedroom. I did say to them, well, if you're allowed 900 square feet, why don't you allow a 3-bedroom? We probably have families that need 3 bedrooms and an affordable place to live. But I don't think they heard me. So throughout the entire code until after the city council, it was saying that one of the 2 units on your property, either your primary residence or your accessible accessory dwelling unit, need to be affordable. Then you don't have to have an on-site. You don't have to have the homeowner live on site. There's been a lot of problems with these short-term rental things coming on, and people are frustrated about it. And having the owner on site really, I think, is helpful when this happens. So at the 13th hour, they basically said, no, you can add an ADU to your primary residence, and you don't have to live on site. So this whole idea of the ADU up until now was, yeah, you can have that, but you have to live on site. So it just, once again, simply put, affordability requirement was removed. Okay. So essentially all the affordability requirements were removed at the end. Okay. So that's kind of my thing about affordability. Okay. You could argue, discuss what is affordable. I think, to me, what I didn't see is when you ask what would be an academia, what is affordable housing? They'll say 30 if the rent or the payment is 30% or less of your total income. Okay, that's all they'll say. At the end of the day, to me, that equates to, look, if I design a 4,500 square foot, three or four bedroom unit, okay, how's that going to be affordable?
Yeah.
It can't be. Okay, I mean, so to me, I wanted to bring it down to try to understanding the range. Like, and the other thing that I'd never heard the city do was, we heard we needed 27,000 affordable units, or we need X amount of units, and this much need to be affordable. I never heard or saw a breakdown, a metrics, a science that said, we really need this many 1 bedrooms, we need this many 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, and maybe if we could even get a couple 4-bedroom affordable things in there. If we could get that, we could probably solve this problem. If you get 27,000 micro studios at 500 square feet, you're not going to fix the problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, so now I'm going to move on to demolition. Demolition has really, really confused me, this whole rewrite. So if the city has these, what they're calling corridors, you want to call them transit corridors, essentially they're arterial streets or collector streets, or next to certain mixed use zones, right? Where the city is investing in infrastructure and transportation. And they've basically have said, well, now in the R1C zone, if you live in this area, which is very limited, okay, it's 300 feet. I mean, we asked for a number of how many lots fit in this and how many lots don't fit in this, and we never got it back, okay? So I could do up to 12 units on a property. So, okay, that makes sense. We need to increase the density on these corridors, because that's, we're trying to get rid of parking. We're trying to pick up mass transit. We're trying to pick up people walking. We're trying to get people, the alternative to the car. So they put a clause in there that said, you can only demo your house and do this if your improvements on your property are 25% or less of the entire assessed property per Ada County. Well, basically, drive down the streets and, we asked them, well, what percentage of these properties qualify for that? Because that's an extremely undervalued or vacant property.
Mm-hmm.
So it's limited. So you basically have stopped yourself from even starting. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you go into the rest of the neighborhood. There's no restriction on the demolition.
So it's like flipped. It's backwards. To
me, it is. And I brought this up, and they looked at me with, deer in the headlight look, and because I had a Zoom meeting that the city took over, and they had a deer in the headlight look when I said that.
Yikes.
So, yeah, that's part. So those are 2 out of the 3 pieces that I really want people to understand. Okay.
And that's great info, because
and once again, I'm speculating, I'm guessing, just like everybody else is, just like the city is. I didn't see a lot of research being done on what other, this concept of upzoning, and you hear the terminology inclusionary zoning, okay? And there's even been some pretty harsh words thrown out about, the zoning code and what it's been for today. So the floor area, there's 2 items. We have a thing that we've used since day one, is floor area ratio. And floor area ratio is the amount of area you can build on a property, not including garages, and it's up to the jurisdiction whether or not they want to approve a basement for that, okay? And we also had in our code a height transition if you were building next to an existing single-story single-family residence, okay? Well, they were in the code until the 3rd draft, and then they were removed.
Wow.
Yeah, and I did hear a quote from one of the city councilmen as I watched their Zoom meeting that, we don't have to provide solar access to people.
Mm.
It's not something legally we have to provide.
So we can shade people. We're not obligated to.
Yeah, we can build 40-foot tall boxes 5 and 10 feet away from this house and leave that house in the shade for the entire day. Okay.
What are your specific thoughts on that topic?
Well, as an architect, you pretty much, especially doing a healthcare architect, evidence-based design says access to natural light is one of the most important elements for good design.
Makes
It's weird
sense.
because planners for years and years and years were trying to protect people in solar access. And then all of a sudden, we're like, let's just throw all that away. We need density, we need density, we need density. Let's go bigger, taller, fatter, wider, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't create density. It basically just gives you taller, larger, fatter, wider buildings. Okay. And I tried to present that, and it didn't go over, I guess, but if I can share my screen with you here.
Sure.
So here are some of my graphics that I did. And so this is the building I designed when I heard that the city removed the floor area ratio and the height transition. So I got a 3.5 level duplex. At one point early on, I told the city, if you're going to give me 40 feet, I'm going 4 stories. Oh, we don't want 4 stories. So they added, well, now it's 40 feet and 3 stories. Okay. But that's a 3.5 story. That's a 3 story over a basement. So essentially, if I put a basement in, I could put 4 levels. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. So we got a basement, first floor, second floor, third floor roof. It's got a huge rec room, bathroom, hot tub, sun deck. I'm at 4,324 square feet for each unit.
Wow. Pretty fancy.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I guess you could look at the theory that says we don't want to limit what people can do with their property.
Right. Well, the problem with that, and the problem that I found, is that, like you're finding here, what happens is it ends up leading to gentrification, and then you push out people that can't afford it. Which, if that's what your goal is, then fine. But if your goal is to create affordable housing, like you're finding there, none of it doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't, and I don't understand why. And I had some discussions with some of the neighborhood Boise people that are for it, and I asked them that question. They never answered me.
Really?
They went round and round and round.
Yeah.
So, and then, as I go down here, I start saying, well, let me take the basement off. Okay. Well, I'm still at 3,200 square feet. Okay. That's still not an economical solution.
No.
And then, now here I am. Now all of a sudden, now I'm back to this idea of that 25-foot height transition, especially next to single family residences. I mean, have some compassion for the people that live here. Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, don't just say all of a sudden we don't care about your solar access because we don't have to give it to you legally. Well,
yeah, I agree.
I know I might have said it before, I'm not sure, but evidence-based design, I've been an architect for 40 years. You need to provide daylight and sunlight to people for their mental happiness. Okay?
Sure.
Pretty obvious.
Mm.
So I can get almost 2,600 square foot units within that 25 feet. I'm over my recommended FAR. So I want to tell you a little bit about FAR. The floor area ratio is, the amount of area you can build on your lot. So if your lot is 1,000 square feet and the floor area ratio is 0.5, you can do 500 square feet of space, not including garages, enclosed garages.
Okay.
Still the biggest enclosed garage you want on there. Okay. Basements are included or not included based on jurisdiction. Some of them add it, some of them take them on. And I'm going to go talk a little bit about basements to you later because I brought up the idea of incentivizing basements to the city, and nothing came back. I didn't hear back. Okay.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. And then here's a simple single story pitched roof duplex. I mean, yeah, with 1,600 square foot units below the FAR.
Okay.
And then now I'm going to go talk a couple triplexes. Here's a 2-story triplex, garages, unit size 1,656, FAR 0.69, which is below. So to continue on FAR, the city's had an FAR currently, and they've had it in the first 2 drafts of the rezone was 0.55. 0.55 will give you a 2,000 square foot duplex. Some of us in discussions thought that, well, maybe the should be a sliding scale where you go 0.55 for duplex, 0.70, 0.65, 0.70 for triplex, 0.70, 0.75 for fourplex, because you don't want to tell somebody, you can do a fourplex, but you have to do it at 900 square feet, which is what 0.55 would put it at you.
Okay.
So that makes me want to think about, well, let's give a little bit of breathing room in here, okay? But let's not, I mean, I wouldn't allow 4,000 square foot units.
Sure.
Here's a triplex. Once again, what you're going to see, the general trend is when I go above 25 feet and I go to the 3rd floor or a 3rd floor plus a basement, I'm starting to really get big unit sizes.
Yeah.
Almost 2457. To me, the larger the unit, the less affordable it's going to sell for.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense.
So now we're going to go into fourplexes. Here's a simple 2-story fourplex. What am I at? About 1,300, 1,340 to 1,400. 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath units. I can do it at 25 feet, but it has to be a flat roof. So you're also going to see, and we talk about building height later on, that there's no advantages. Before we would use the pitched roof, it used to be height limit was 35 feet to the center line of a pitched roof. We'd use that as a designer. We'd use that to our advantage to get that usable attic space in there. So unless somebody wants a house that has pitched roof, craftsman, traditional, whatever, you're going to see, most developers, I think, will go to a flat roof. I mean, I could be off, but
yeah,
when I'm drawing these flat roofs here, I'm drawing them here for a reason. That's because it gives me more area.
Sure.
A bigger building. Here's fourplex number 2. Kind of a cool idea where you go inside and go to the units. Kind of an all enclosed single entry type thing.
Yeah.
Thought that was cool.
That is cool.
1,436 square feet. I'm at 25 feet. Okay.
So could something like this be done under the current code, or are you still outside of what the current code would
I'm outside because I'm on a fourplex.
Gotcha. Okay. That's right. That's right.
Again, I can't go above a duplex plus an ADU.
That's right. Okay.
Now I'm starting to go back. I'm going into fourplexes, and now I'm starting to do these. You're going to give me the 3rd floor back, right? I'll give you the 3rd floor, and I'm going to give you 2,211 square foot units.
Yeah.
So I just added the 3rd floor to the 2 floors. Now, you could say, look, we don't want to, it's not in our world to restrict property rights, and we don't want to limit people. This 25-foot height transition was just next to single-story residents, existing residents. You could put 2 of these up next to each other, or if it's a 2-story unit there, you can put them 40 feet tall. They do have a little bit of a setback on the 3rd floor, not much.
Sure.
Create these tiny little alleys between the houses,
So you're saying if it's into the context of the neighborhood, you need to be aware of it. Where 25 next to like you say, it's too high next to a single story. But are you saying that if there's not a single story next for some unknown reason, they could go 40 and be good to go?
Today you can do it. You can go 40 feet next to us.
That's
single
true.
story. They took it out between the second and
True.
third draft, and they never really gave me what I would consider any sort of logic behind it.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
so um, I just you know you want people to accept what you're doing, okay, but you might be asking too much, and you didn't have to. You could have eased your way into this thing, and I think
Yeah, that was my feeling too. Yeah.
you could have eased your way. This is a different fourplex. It's two duplexes. City probably wouldn't approve this. Planning director has the opportunity to approve alternate designs if it meets the goals. So this might, what am I, almost 1700 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Here's fourplex number 5. This is where I showed flat unit at the bottom, flat single story, and then 2-story above. Okay. So I was
Okay.
trying to piece together all the different elements I could do.
Sure.
Okay? And one of the criticisms that somebody sent to me is, Greg, why do you keep drawing what we don't want? Why don't you draw what we want? And I
Is this
said,
coming from the city? That someone
no,
from the city
I'm
asked you
not
that?
going to tell you where it
Oh,
came
okay.
from.
But someone asked you, why are you not
Yeah,
drawing?
why
Okay.
aren't ultimately they said, why don't you just draw what we want to have and not what you can do? And I said, that's not what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to say, why are you taking things out that help this transition? And
Well, that's also an interesting question to have someone ask an architect who works with clients to give them what they want. Do you find the irony there, or
there was another architect who told me that, by the way.
is that so?
Yeah. So I just went, well, I mean,
Interesting.
okay, sorry, I'm a guy, glass half full versus half, half,
Sure.
half empty versus half full.
Well,
I don't know.
yeah, I
My,
wouldn't ask an architect that because you work with clients all the time and you're building what they want. And so I would think if anyone's going to know what people want, it would be you, an
well,
architect.
once again, the economics don't support, the cost of our land does not support affordable housing right
Sure.
now. Okay. So unless our costs of our properties um, reduce significantly, I'm talking about in half,
Yeah.
you're going to have a hard time. Now, the community developers, different animal. So the community developers are technically doing subsidized housing. They're not
Right.
affordable housing because they're getting private donations and they're doing a great job. I think I might have said before, but they can only do so much.
Yeah, but it's a small percentage, right?
It's
Especially,
not enough to make a difference.
right. Especially when if the market, because of this code, if it is opened up like what you're pointing out to us here, and you have developers that do want to maximize their return on investment and want to build to that, to do the gentrification, then they're really fighting for a piece of the pie, aren't they?
Well, yeah, I mean, um, not everybody's a philanthropist or a community developer.
Sure.
If the market supports $1 million units in my neighborhood and the developers or homeowner or whoever, anybody
Yeah.
can build that unit out the door at 800,000, they're going to sell it for $1 million.
Absolutely. Yeah.
They're so, now with the affordability incentives gone, it's kind of laissez-faire.
It is. It really
Yeah.
is.
So here's a simple row house of 4 units under 25 feet, under my FAR, 2-story, nice, even what I would consider large for affordable, but I'm down to 1224. So this to me is a good metric of what we should be going for.
Sure. They're like the sweet spot, so
The
to
sweet
speak.
spot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then I messed around with ADU a little bit. I have a house here. It's 1,600 square feet. Okay. I have an existing 2-car accessory garage, and I can fit in a ADU, a 671 square foot ADU right here. I probably need I need a variance because I already have an accessory unit.
Uh-huh.
but I think the city would give it to me because I would hope they would give it to me because they want more accessible dwelling units because in their
Sure.
mind they're affordable.
Yeah.
You know, it's 1 bedroom. Uh, here's a 2 bedroom. Got a little bit closer here, but still 5 feet away. Okay,
Sure.
I might have to. This wall from here to here will probably not have an opening in it. And I might have to put some chipboard, fire rated
Mhm.
chipboard on it, but it fits.
Sure.
You come in here, you come in your entrance, and when you come down here and you come in, you got a nice 495 square foot open space.
Wow.
And then here's an interesting one: is this is a 2-story unit. Um, it's 1,636 square feet. Okay, and you come in, nice living, dining, kitchen, bath, up the stairs, 2 bedrooms and a bath. So
Yeah.
this would not be allowed by the current zoning code.
Like you said, you need the variance.
Well, I don't know, not because of the variance, but because I cannot do an accessory dwelling unit over 900 square feet
That's right.
and
That's
over
right.
2 bedrooms. So here's the irony. This is what I consider the irony, and that is I can tear my house down and build two 4,000 plus square foot units, but I can't build a 2-story affordable 1,636 square feet unit on my property if the
Yeah.
walls aren't touching.
Yeah.
So, um,
Wow.
interesting enough, I had a meeting with Elaine Clegg, and we went through this, and she said, oh, she had a great idea. Let's not define duplex, fourplex, accessibility dwelling unit. Let's call it a 2 unit, 3 unit, 4 unit, 5 unit, 6 unit, whatever site. So we're
Okay.
not limiting ourselves to a definition of a plex, which means common wall.
Okay.
I thought that was really, really, really good. I
Yeah.
brought that up. I brought it up numerous times, and it didn't get
Interesting.
there.
Great.
Okay. So uh, I think I've kind of given you the kind of both a side approach to this, and that is you can do you limit what you can do on a site to make it affordable, or do you not, and just let market develop whatever happened go there? One argument I heard from the city, which I don't agree with, is if we don't have an FAR or a height transition for a single family residence, why should we have it for a duplex through fourplex?
Mm.
And I said, well, I think there's a difference. The odds of somebody building a 9,000 square foot single
Yeah.
family home on my property is not that great.
Yeah.
The odds of somebody building a 9,000 square foot fourplex is pretty much higher.
Sure.
I even heard from them, they said, well, maybe we'll put an FAR and a lot coverage on single family.
Mm. But again, back to like what you said, it's generally not going to happen, right?
No.
Yeah.
I what they're trying to achieve with the rezone is good. I just don't, some of this logic or illogic behind it, I don't get.
Yeah.
I
And
was, go ahead.
well, to that point, when you say what they're trying to achieve, and we may have covered this earlier, but maybe tell us what you feel they're trying to achieve in a nutshell.
Well, I think they're trying to, two things. Number one, their cornerstone of their presentation and what created the signs, I think, that say legalized homes, which I don't understand what that means, was affordability. As I listened to the city council, affordability was what everybody talked about. Okay. The second thing is trying to alleviate traffic, reduce parking numbers by incentivizing these corridors, arterial corridors, but they limited themselves to it. So, like
Yeah,
we
like
talked
we
about
already talked
before,
about that. It's
yeah,
counterintuitive what they
it felt
wrote.
counterintuitive. Um, at the city council, I had numerous, like I said, I presented a Zoom meeting. Tim Keene was there, Holly Woodings was there, and I didn't get through the whole thing because it got pirated. But
Yeah.
At the city council meeting, I walked up to Tim and I said, Tim, how come you're not listening to me? What? Oh, we're listening.
But you didn't feel
Oh,
that was
no,
really
no. I
happening.
mean,
Yeah.
and don't get me wrong. I don't think these people are running out there to figure out how to sabotage us. You know, I think personally, I think they were out of time. They wanted to get it done before the November election,
Hmm.
and they did their best within that time frame.
So would it be fair to say that you feel there might have been some rushing going on?
Oh, absolutely. I think, they said they had spent a long time, 3 years on it. Well, didn't Austin spend 6 or 7 or 8?
Oh, is that what? Yeah.
I
I don't know
mean,
how
something. I
it
mean,
does seem like they spend a long time and you'd think that would be sufficient time. But as we've talked about, these things are complex and there's a lot of moving pieces and parts, aren't there?
yeah, and you didn't ease into it. I mean, you just thought, well, you know, once again, this all is speculation. Okay.
Sure.
In 10 years from now, we don't know what's going to be the market. We don't know what's going to happen in Boise. We don't know what's going to happen in this world.
Yeah.
But, based on my research and looking at other cities and looking at other cities' housing analysis, that were much more thorough than the one we did here in Boise.
Sure.
I thought that, you got to use the tools you have to make the best decision to start with.
Right.
And you've heard this at city council, and everybody has said this. It's easier to give than take away.
Yeah, absolutely. We've heard that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, and that was one of my frustrations too, speaking to your point about, doing this in a thoughtful way moving forward. You know, Fortunately, it doesn't seem to have maybe affected the process or the outcome, but fortunately, cities have been doing this for what has it been? At least a couple decades, right? Or a decade and a half. There's plenty of
I would
data.
say I would say a decade and a half, and I'm
Yeah.
not necessarily sure what's been successful and what's not been successful.
Yeah.
And it would be really nice to have somebody come out and say, this is what we did. This worked. This did not work. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure. I mean, but in all fairness, when you go online, what you see and what you read is about all the failures because
That is true. You do have a point. You do have a point.
it's the negativity, the failures
Right.
of
People are going to gripe harder about what they don't like than you're
yeah.
right. And that is a great statement,
And I would
Gregg.
like to have had a opportunity to look at and research areas that had a positive solution, successful solution, and then understand what did they do that the other places did not do.
Exactly.
You
And I
know,
looked for that too. And I didn't necessarily find a specific case like that. Like you said, probably a lot of it was the other reason. But that's what was so perplexing to me is it's not like this is a new animal that would never been done before. There's a lot of examples. Now, granted, every city's a unique case, and sometimes you can't compare New York to here, but there's still,
sure.
I think we can still learn valuable information from those other trials. And I just didn't see that being applied at the level here. Before we move on, unless you have any other thing about that specific topic, I have another question for you that really has been on my mind, and I'd love to get your feedback from it. Have you found any evidence that promoting density in a city curtails or limits urban sprawl? Can you talk a little bit about that idea? It was a very hot topic throughout the whole process.
Um, well, it's interesting. That's a great question. I don't know if I can personally answer to it, but I think it's going to take a lot. My answer would be potentially yes. Yes, the post World War II solution was 3 bedroom, 1.5, or sorry, 3 bedroom, 2 bath, 2 car garage, 6,000 square foot lot. That's 2 cars in the garage and a swing set in the backyard. That was the post World War II movement. And that is what the current planning does not agree with. Okay. Maybe the shift in demographics and the shift in generational shift might create that. Okay. Are we there today? I would say no. Okay. So people, I think, still want the 3-2, 2 car garage, 2 cars and a yard.
Yeah.
So, I think it eventually will go away. The other
Sure.
thing I think I said to you before is I don't believe density by itself creates affordability. Okay. I said the correct density. Well, then it brought me up with something that's been bothering me for months, and that is how much density do you have to add in order to drop rents considerably? We're also talking about ownership versus renting. Okay. You know, ownership is almost out. I mean,
Yeah.
I think the only way you're
That's kind of the unspoken thing beneath the surface of this thing is like we've talked about. That is, it's an interesting phenomenon.
these are I've heard people say these are tailored toward rentals. And if you're a developer, rental versus uh, fee simple sale or simple for sale, two different animals. You
Sure.
can you can you're looking at a profit over time, and so you have a little bit more leeway in what you're doing. Uh, Another question I have is we've had so many market rate apartments added to the city, and a lot of them have been in the core where they want development.
Hmm.
Have rents decreased? And if they have, how much have they decreased?
Yeah.
And then how many more units do we have to add until we hit that point where, you know, uh, they go down enough? I mean, I'm going to guess, but I'm going to think of one of those market rate one bedroom apartments downtown is probably 1,500 a month.
Oh, sure. I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and
What's it
that's,
gonna,
oh, go ahead.
what's it going to take to drop to 1,000 a month? I was
Yeah.
talking to a young person the other day, and I asked them the same question because they were living in one. They said, no, what they do is they give you 2 months free rent, and then they give you the rent for whatever time, and then at the renewal, they put it back up to the market rate.
Oh, so they kind of
They ease back
ease
up
them
into
in.
that thing.
Interesting, but still, eventually you're going to be there, which not everyone can make that happen.
Yeah. The other thing, and I've said this for years, the 30% rule is not good anymore. The idea that your housing should be 30% of your gross income.
Yeah.
Now, that was before people had car loans, and that
Yeah.
was before people used credit cards. And, now, I even saw an article finally last week about New York Times. The guy said 30% is not right.
No.
It's an old number. And I don't know what the number is today, but it's 25,
Yeah.
20. I don't know, but maybe some more research on that would really be helpful. The
Yeah.
definition of affordability.
Well, and we know rents are going up, and they're taking a bigger bite out of what people are taking home, and so I know people are paying more and more. It used to be they could get rent for a smaller portion of their take home, but nowadays it just creeps up. Because of like we talked about
Yeah.
value of
Well,
land.
it's not just rent; it's everything.
Sure.
You know. So, did I answer your question?
You did, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
It's because that was a hot topic, and no one wants to sprawl. We don't want to create sprawl. But in my own research, I didn't specifically find anything. So I asked people that who are in the know, because if there's a correlation, I'm like you. I want to let's put it out in the open. Let's see it. Let's look at the data. And because we are sprawling, and that's not ideal.
Mhm. So, I mean, it's brings up a different question, and that is afford increasing affordable housing, or just increasing housing market rate housing.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, they're two.
maybe you
Speaking of
could
two different
argue
animals. Yeah,
the increase in market rate housing could limit sprawl. I mean, I don't know the research, but you could say that.
you could. Yeah,
You could say,
it
well,
could be
okay, now
argued.
I can give you a 4,000 square foot unit right in town. You don't have to build 4,000 square foot unit out in the outskirts.
Yeah,
That's that
which would
could
be
be
fine if that was if that was the stated goal. But as we've talked about, the stated goal was affordability pushed, and then many people testified at the city council hearings, and many everyone needs more affordable housing. There's no question. And then as it gets the process moves on, we find that was removed, which is very concerning.
it was interesting because as I tracked this process over the last couple of years, affordability came in as a strong candidate, and then it went away.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
it went away. It was probably more of the idea that we want to prevent sprawl.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it came back as a whirlwind. It was the cornerstone goal of the rewrite.
Oh, so you've
Okay.
seen it kind of, you've seen
Oh yeah. Oh, it
the
went.
target kind of move a little bit.
Oh, the
Wow.
target moved big time.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Which is interesting because, as an architect, you'd think you'd have a focused mission and the objective would not change from the beginning of the process till the end. If the objective's changing, that's concerning.
well, yeah. I mean, I can see why objectives can change. Things change.
Sure, that's
You
true. I
wake
guess
up
that's
one morning
fair.
and you say, "Oh, I need a haircut."
Yeah, that's fair.
Um, but this, I didn't hear. I never heard from the city why they did certain things.
Hmm.
Why? What's wrong with just being open? Look, you know, affordability is going to be really hard for us to achieve.
Yeah,
There's a lot of factors, but at a minimum, we can, hopefully our goal, we could, reduce urban sprawl.
right.
And then you'd have to say, well, how many units do you need for urban sprawl? And then the overlay on that is, do we have any compassion for the neighbors?
Sure, absolutely.
You know,
Sure.
uh,
Neighbors feel abandoned. I mean, I know I speak for myself, and I was talking with other people. They don't feel listened to or heard, or like you alluded to, they don't feel like they're getting uh, the communication lines are open. Is what I'm finding.
clearly no communication line. And I tried over and over and over to communicate and asked a ton of questions and was basically uh, not listened to.
Yeah, it
And I
sounds
don't
like
know if
they
you
ignored
heard,
you.
I'm going to give you sort of my little blurb of what I did at the city council hearing. I
Hmm.
was already there to repeat what I did to the planning, and that was I presented that monster and said, I'm doing this because you just allowed it. And I'm doing this because you've now allowed it. That was when they took off the FAR and that. So I said, I'm gonna switch gears here. This is not what I want to say. So I got up and I said, hello, whatever. And it's been a long process. We're all fatigued. And I said, this is not about you versus me. This is not about red versus blue. This is not about NIMBY versus YIMBY. This is about a community that's going to try to get together that needs to solve a very complex problem. And I said, I tried for a long time to communicate and get questions and answers, and I got nowhere. So, best of, whatever. Then, yeah, I truly believe that. And they said, well, we reached out to the community. Well, I went to a couple of their presentations. I could barely understand them. Okay.
Yeah,
They were not. And then the last thing, the graphics, they owed us graphics. The graphics came out the day before the public hearing. Remember that? Those graphics
yeah,
a day
yeah.
before. So
Yeah, which goes back to, and that's the other thing that it felt from my perspective. I got involved maybe 8 months ago to it, and it even felt rushed in that time frame. And what people would tell me is, well, Mark, it's been going on for 3 years, and I would give them the benefit of the doubt. Be that as it may, it still feels the windows for the public to look at this and ask questions felt pretty tight, pretty short.
well, yeah. I
You
mean,
know.
you know, I could be wrong, but I think I might be the only one who tried to put a presentation together to try to simplify and explain it to people what was going on.
Yeah, I didn't see anyone else doing what
Yeah.
you're doing at all. You know.
So I'm going to move us into building height. I've talked about
Sure.
building height a little bit before. Um, Basically, somebody decided that, well, let's only add 5 feet. It's only 5 feet. We're only adding 5 feet. It'll give us more density. I'm like, no, it's not going to give you more density. It's going to give you taller buildings. Taller buildings, taller spaces does not mean affordable.
Yeah.
Okay. Like I said earlier to you, the building code since I've started in the early 80s has always been to the center line of a pitched roof or to the top of a flat roof. Okay. And us architects have always used the pitch roof if we need to get that attic, usable attic space. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I did an ADU for a gentleman, and I used the shed roof. I got him a great ADU. It's got like 18 feet clear inside of it because I
Wow.
went from flat to shed. So,
Sure.
there's
So specific needs and wants you can
right.
open up your yeah.
Yeah, and that once again brings me back to this idea of the height transition. I feel a little bit more compassionate for people. Okay, I don't want to cram 40-foot tall buildings next to people. I won't. I don't. I want to. Maybe over time. I talked to a gentleman, smart guy, works at Boise State. And he talked about this thing that talked about this sort of evolution of height. You go from here to here. Well, okay. Well, once this one has gotten to the 2-story, and then this lot can go to 2-story, and then the next lot can go to 3-story. You know what I mean? There's
Mm-hmm.
a process of sort of a good process to increase the heights without losing
Sure.
the integrity of your neighborhoods. And I think I heard from the city numerous times that keeping the integrity of the neighborhoods was a goal.
Sure.
I don't know where it went.
Yeah.
Okay, so one thing that sort of to try to talk about this process of building height, somebody, and I know where it came from, I'm not going to tell you, well, we're going to add 5 feet because we need more density. And then some people came back and said, well, wow, you can get 4 stories in there. Oh, no, 40 feet or 3 stories. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then the solution at the end was, well, your 3rd floor needs to be set back another 5 feet from the 2nd floor. That was their solution at the end.
Okay.
Well, did you model it? I didn't see any models. What? Okay.
And where did
Well,
they come
we'll
up with
let them go
that?
2 stories, and we'll just push the 3rd story back 5 feet. That'll be plenty for the neighbors.
To let that sun in.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, well,
What do you think
I
about that?
think it was in there. Unfortunately, I think they said, oh my God, we're allowing these really tall buildings next to these single family houses now, so we got to do something to help them.
So
Personally, what
do you feel that is a meaningful design change, or do you think it's more of a kind of a throwing something
well,
at the?
once again, I think it's better than what it would have been.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still the person that wants to see the 25-foot height transition next to single family homes.
Sure.
Okay. Um, yeah, it's
Okay.
better than what it was, but it's,
Sure.
you know,
But it's still moving in the direction of potentially blocking out natural sunlight from neighbors.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, so let me see if I have anything here in my notes. So I had next ADUs as a subject. I think we've kind of talked about ADUs. We talked about the affordability requirement for on-site owner. We talked about 900 square feet. Why not allow 3 bedrooms instead of 2? One thing that I don't have on the list is parking. And
Yeah. Yeah,
I've
talk about
not
parking.
talked about parking um, from day one, and I purposely said that 2 things I'm not going to talk about because they're their own subject and it's too much is the parking in historic districts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm on the historic district committee for the East End neighborhood, and it's just way too complex to
Sure.
get into the subject of where we're at.
That's fair.
Yeah. Do you have any questions for me on
Not,
that?
no, not so far. I know parking was one of they're definitely it last minute. What did they also remove some parking on the they pushed some parking out at last minute as well. They definitely want to reduce cars. I mean, change behavior.
Absolutely. And I can tell you from day one, as an architect, someone says, "What can I put on my property?" It was all parking all parking generated. How much parking spaces can I get?
Oh, really? In
It's
your personal experience
Oh
working with
yeah, and any
clients?
architect I think will tell you that.
Sure.
And it's even the same thing with this one. If I had a property, my property was within that 300 foot of the arterial.
Uh-huh.
I wanted to put a 10-unit apartment on it. I still have to get probably 6 or 7 parking spaces. One
Sure.
of them has to be accessible, ADA accessible. I'm still going to have to push, shove, and squeeze to get those in. Okay.
Yeah.
Probably building over the top of parking. So it's changed it. It's a whole different subject. We could argue on and on and on about parking and driving. Okay.
Yeah.
And we kind of talked to, and I think once again, this is going to be a generational thing, like we talked about with urban sprawl.
Yeah.
Over time, I think that um, the reduction of parking is probably okay.
Hmm.
Is it okay today? Different discussion.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense.
And then basements. I don't know when it occurred to me. It was pretty late in the process when I said, we're not using basements. And well, developers won't build a basement. Well, okay. I mean, we going to cater? We catering to the developer with this
Sure.
zone? What's our goal? Well, sustainability is our goal. And I said, well, aren't basements sustainable? Well, one answer was, well, you're going to put people's apartments in the basement. And I said, well, you can do a half basement,
Sure.
and you can have, you can also extend your excavation so they can have a patio out there. Basements aren't necessarily bad. We're just so
Sure.
used to bad basements.
Yeah.
I said, let's see if we can't reduce the height of the buildings and the mass of the buildings and put a sustainable solution in there instead of
It
nothing.
seems common sense. So they didn't have anything to say about that. It seems
No.
you're right. It seems very commonsensical.
Yeah. And then I think my last topic is a tough one, and that's neighbor notification.
Yeah. Big one.
I think the the idea was that projects are more expensive and they won't be affordable because the neighbors are slowing down the projects, yada, yada, yada. Okay. So, I think there's an argument both ways for that. Okay. I do I think they went too far, removed everything. They pretty much removed everything.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I can if I live on a corner lot, I can put a neighborhood cafe or a neighborhood retail sales on my lot and not only have to tell my neighbors.
Yeah. No
Okay.
notification.
Yeah. If I live on an internal lot like I do, I have to have a conditional use permit, which I was always pushing them toward a conditional use permit on all neighborhood commercial going back to the neighborhood. And they
Sure.
kept coming back and saying, we just want a lot more of those Roosevelt markets.
Yeah.
I said, just beware that the Roosevelt market, fortunately, has been a very good neighbor. They don't promote alcohol sales. They don't
Yeah.
promote loud music. There's only a couple homes next to them. They're off by the school. And I said, I think that, it would be nice to be able to go through a process of, you know, neighbor notification and let everybody work together for a solution. To me, conditional use permits have been so easy. I've got dozens of them for St. Luke's, okay, and other people. And if you have a good project, you're not going to have a problem getting the conditional use permit. If you put up a bad project, you're going to have a hard time.
They're going to review it. They're going to scrutinize it. Is that what you're saying?
But that's what it's for.
Sure.
And then one example was the Armory. Okay. I was the lead guy on the Armory committee.
Mm-hmm.
And we, through discussions with them, were able to get the developer to put one level of parking underground. And the solution is 100 times better. So not only did they reduce the height of their building, they separated the parking for the apartment dwellers from the commercial.
Wow.
That would not have happened without neighbor notification.
So you're saying that you're saying that came through the design process with the neighbors' feedback? Is that what you're saying?
It would not have happened without the neighbors' feedback.
Wow. See, and that then goes back to this idea that when you inadvertently lock out people from the process, you're going to not have as good a project as you could have. That's my thinking. I think the more feedback, the more people you can get in. Sometimes neighbors can be put up roadblocks. So, but I think it's all
But,
valuable. They live there, it's they're part of their neighborhood.
but my experience is the city knows when that's happening.
Yeah.
Every time, I was for 4 years, the development committee, armory committee for the East End. And then every time you could see some sort of erroneous objection
Mm,
or this or that, the city didn't even listen to them. I mean, they're
okay.
smart enough over there to know when somebody's got a good beef or somebody doesn't have
Sure.
good beef. So that part I don't. Um,
Sure.
but what I think is, as we're sort of trending down, I know you have some final questions for me. Is one of the things I wanted to do, but I probably won't do it because it's kind of snarky. Since I could do it, is submit that duplex number 1 to the city.
Mm,
My 4,324 square footer.
yeah.
I feel meets all, with the hot tub and the trellis on top.
Uh-huh.
I feel meets all their requirements, and to see how they would react.
Sure. Sure. That
Because
it would really be eye opening. It would really be telling,
I, you know,
but you won't.
I,
Yeah.
I don't know. You know what? I don't want. I've tried to. I did a KTVB interview. I did a bunch of Zoom interviews. I'm doing this interview, and I've been trying to. I didn't join any groups. I've just been trying to get to the facts.
Sure.
And to me, there's some illogical facts that I don't understand, and nobody's been able to answer my questions. And I just kind of dialed into saying, I'm not going to stop asking these questions until you give me an answer. I mean, it might
Yeah.
not be an answer I want to hear, but at least something I can grab onto and say, okay, I see where you're at from that.
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate you doing that because, from my sense, like you said, it sounds like you've gone to them a number of times and wanted to have a dialogue and have a conversation and ask for data. And I really feel that it's going to be that this Boise residents are going to have to take up this cause because it feels like to them, we're done. We're closing the chapter. We're moving on. Where there is a lot of people, myself, it definitely sounds like you. And I've talked to a lot of people who still are not, who still have questions, who still have concerns that never got met,
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I don't, I think I kind of told you all the things in a nutshell
Yeah.
that I have issues or confusion on that I haven't had answered. And um, it's interesting. I have a contact down at the city that I was in close contact with that won't contact me back since the rewrite has been approved.
Really.
Yeah, it's
Yeah. That's how these things go. And it's
it's really
unfortunate.
discouraging to me
Yeah.
to have somebody who, I thought it was we had a really good professional relationship, and we had a lot of discussions and this and that, and then all of a sudden, now boom, it's approved. Now nothing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's unfortunate.
I don't know what to read into that, but
Sure. But it's a factor.
mhm.
Let me see what else I had here. It's just been, first of all, this has been fantastic, Greg, and I want to thank you for giving your time. You've really illuminated a lot of really great ideas that people I think can understand what's happening in this. So thank you.
Mhm.
Let me see here. One of the questions that I had here was comments from Boise residents. We do know there were like 1,900 comments sent in. There were a number of people testified at the hearings. What's your overall perception? I mean, you have your experience. Um, how much do you think the city listened and incorporated those? That's kind of a loaded question, but what's your sense? I mean, there were a lot of comments sent in.
Okay, so every time that I ranted and raved that I wasn't being listened to, I was always told, but there are other people making the comments that are the 180 of what you're saying.
Mm,
So uh, I don't know. Once
yeah,
again, we're going to only have the people that are more negative put their comments in, and
yeah,
so I can't answer that. I
and
know
that's fair. Yeah,
I
it's a
know they
big.
were hit with a lot of stuff.
Mhm.
Once again, I'm not going to. I think they were rushed. I can't.
Sure. But it definitely felt that way. What would you, so we've got a number of candidates, city council candidates, and mayoral candidates, this appears to be shaping up as a topic for this coming election. What would you ask candidates or want to know about candidates on where they stand on this? I mean, if you were, talking with a potential city council candidate or mayoral candidate, what would you tell them about the upzone? What would you want to know what they know about
Well,
it?
the first thing I would ask him is, do you know what it is, and do you understand it?
Mm,
Okay. And I'd be happy to educate them. Numerous times I sent to the city my stuff and I said, please tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm not putting out fake zoning. Okay. Because that was
sure.
very important for me to make sure I was putting out the right stuff. Um, I don't, if they don't educate themselves on it and they don't understand it, then they can't speak toward it. And, if they say, I don't like it or I like it, well, then if they can't tell you why and get down to the nitty gritty, then we're going to suffer,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I agree. And it's a concern, if you just take and this is the sense that I got kind of from the city council too, and they even mentioned this, maybe even planning and zoning mentioned this, is when thoughtful questions were brought up during either hearing, I think it happened at both hearings. Well, we're not really here to discuss that now. We're only looking at this from the higher level. And I thought to myself, if that's not the time to really understand what was happening here, when is that time? I think it was planning and zoning hearing that remark was made. We're not really here to address that specifics. We're just talking higher level, which is concerning.
Well, I don't think the city council was ready to talk specifics either.
Yeah, that's a good
And
point.
I was almost floored when I heard the recommendations to remove the affordability incentives. And my
Yeah.
question would be, why? Why did you remove the affordability incentives? I mean, I asked them many times, why did you remove the FAR and the height transition? And they gave me that answer about single family residences, which I didn't buy off on. Okay.
Hmm.
But at least I got an answer. First question would be, what happened between point A and point B where you took that out? That's the
Yeah.
question. That's my first question. That would be, what happened? Some sort of event. It wasn't just somebody by themselves saying,
It's not a
we're going
random
to do that.
thing.
Yeah, no, it doesn't happen that way.
Yeah.
It's what I think we're going to hear from, unfortunately, from the politicians is they're going to try to get a litmus paper or test the waters on where the general um, uh, idea of where the Boise's are with it. And if
Hmm.
it says that the majority of them are against it, they're going to say they're against it. And if the
Yeah.
majority say they're for it, they're going to say they're for it.
Yeah.
So
They're going to use it, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
So from a political side, if I could if one of them came to me and said, educate me, and then they made the decision on, and they said, you know, I've learned about it and I agree that there's some concerns, even if majority of the Boiseans are for it.
Yeah. That I think that's what my sense is, and I'm speaking for myself, is all I want is a thoughtful, discussion and a transparent process. I mean, it seems like that's the biggest kind of thorn in the in my side for this process. And my sense is that Boiseans feel that way too. We know our city's going to grow. We know it's a popular place, but it just seems very, very strange and rushed this whole process was.
No, I agree. I feel the same way. That's why I'm talking to you. I feel exactly like what you say. I didn't see the transparency that I thought the city would give us. And it was frustrating.
Yeah, it really was.
And once again, I'm not against it.
Yeah,
And I, if I could have a crystal ball to see what they did and how they did it, then I might feel better about it.
sure. My final question would be, talk to me about your experience with it does seem like they strategically removed certain areas of our city. I'm talking about the North End, the Highlands, the Crescent Rim. Tell me what your thoughts are with them doing that from the upzone.
Well, I wasn't aware that they did. Okay.
Well, I guess let me rephrase that. Um, I shouldn't say remove because of lot sizes, et cetera, which some of those are in R1C, correct? Specifically North
Yeah.
End.
Well,
Um,
the North End is majority historic district.
okay.
So
Okay.
that's its own.
Kind of a different
And that was
animal.
a, and that was a problem during this process because we had numerous trying to figure out how the city was going to address historic districts.
Mm-hmm.
And what I thought we heard at the end is that there's no change, that these
Mm.
historical guidelines that we have are going to be. I mean, we heard multiple things. We heard things from, no, doesn't matter if you're in a historic district or not. It's a new rezone. We're doing whatever we need. To
Okay.
no, it's not changing. So it was a very,
So it was all over the board.
it was all over the board. And I'm not sure if we even still had an answer.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So
Sure.
Crescent Rim, I don't know how you could, I'm not sure how you could say that they were that anybody was overlaid. I think what you're I think what you're going to see, and this is very important, is if you drove down my street
Mm-hmm.
and you looked at it, you would say, "Wow, all those clinker brick homes." Can you hear my puppy?
Yeah, I hear
Okay,
it.
sorry about that.
Faintly, very faintly.
Okay, so
Dogs are always welcome on
yeah,
the on
if you
the
drove down my street and you saw these one-story early 1950 clinker brick homes, and you said, "Oh my God, if you tear those things down, it's going to be a travesty."
Mhm.
Okay, I would agree.
From a
Okay,
historical standpoint, from a preservation
from a
standpoint. Yeah.
historical standpoint, yeah. I mean, these are from the old Pullman brickyard. So, do I, like a lot of other people, are we going to try to get the city to put us in the historic districts in order to circumvent?
Mhm.
Now, if this thing was written correctly, we wouldn't even be thinking about trying to circumvent it.
Because
Trust me.
it would have already protected
Yeah,
that
no,
type
it
of
would have
neighborhood.
fixed itself.
Yeah.
This is this is not rocket science.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. But it's felt like it was because of the process changing
I,
targets, you
I, I
know.
firmly, I can firmly agree with you that I didn't feel the process was transparent and open. When I saw the FAR and the height transition removed between the second draft and the adoption draft, I just went, what? What? What happened? What? Same thing with these removals at the end. What went on to do that?
Mm.
And you and these are not bad people. Trust me, these people are trying to do what they think is good.
Hmm.
I would hope that there wasn't external influences put on them to make changes that were in what a lot of us feel were not good changes.
Sure.
I
Sure.
don't. I'm hoping that's not the case.
Yeah.
I know most of the people that work down at the city, they're smart, they're nice people, and which that sort of baffles me how they took this thing, the way some of the direction that they went with it.
Mm.
Just didn't feel right to me that these people were heading this way, and I didn't think they would, just based on how I know them.
Yeah. So there's some level of inconsistency with how they have
I
done
don't know.
work.
I
Yeah.
don't know. Um, I don't know.
Yeah.
I would love to be able to sit down and talk with them, but like I said, they won't talk to me. So
Sure. Yeah.
I might be put on the same side that you're on.
You might be on the,
And
we
that's
won't
fine.
even go there. We won't even go there. But
Yeah, that's fine.
yeah. Well, I appreciate your thoughtful, open. For one thing, if this process has been transparent, thank you for the time and your
Hmm.
thoughtfulness and your openness to share, because it's valuable, very valuable. As an architect with his finger on the pulse of how this thing would translate into real world built structures, it's very valuable.
Well, like I
Greg.
said in the beginning, we don't really know.
Sure.
Um, I don't think, like I said, I don't think I think that it might start out with and hopefully with what they want, and that is undervalued and vacant lots in the corridors get developed.
Mm-hmm.
And I would hope that it's undervalued and vacant lots in the entire R1C zone that are developed.
Sure. Before they go into,
Before we start demolishing
yeah,
what I
Yeah.
would consider is our most affordable product today, and that is the older, smaller home. I mean, if you've got some of these homes in my neighborhood, they're 1,200 square feet.
sure.
They're 2 bedroom, 1 bath, 1,200 square feet. Okay.
They're right in that sweet spot we
They're
talked
right
about
in that
earlier.
sweet spot. And if it's demolished and something that is market rate is put back in, we've defeated the purpose. So that in addition to this idea that I can build these monstrosities, I don't feel comfortable with it.
Sure.
But time will tell.
Yeah, time will tell. Well, that's all I had, unless you have any things you want to share before we wrap up here.
No, maybe my last comment would be, I think from day one, I've been in approval of it and concept. I just don't like how the process and what the final product is. At the end of the day, I could be wrong.
Mhm.
They could be wrong. You could be wrong. We don't know.
Yeah, that's a great way. Well, thank you, Gregg. I appreciate it. I really do. It's a lot of great information.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.